And for the final time in 2022, welcome in to NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing, the home of NASCAR roots racing and much more. Don't forget, you can still subscribe. There's plenty of racing coming up the rest of this year. You can do so at flowracing.com. As always, my name is Chris Wilner, MRN Pit Reporter. Joining me, my fellow trusty co-host, Kyle Rickey, up in Killingly, Connecticut, one of our announcers here for the Motor Racing Network. I'm at the home of MRN in Concord, North Carolina, where the leaves have all but fallen off the trees, signaling the end of the year. Kyle, it is a beautiful day, what looks like from my vantage point up there at Stafford. Quite picturesque here. Chamber of Commerce type weather as we wrap up the year.
Yeah, we've had some weird weather here, and we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. But just in the last 3 days, we've gone from t-shirt weather, where it was pushing 80 degrees, to hoodie weather. And now tomorrow it's like hoodie plus the jacket weather. So the seasons are changing by the day here, seemingly. The leaves that you speak of down there are all but off the trees up here. So yeah, winter is approaching here pretty quick.
And time flies when you're having fun. And 41 episodes later this year, we've pretty much seen it all when it comes from new winners to our perennial favorites that have gotten themselves marquee wins over the years. Obviously, we started the show talking about Daytona and the ARCA Menard series. That is all but wrapped up the last couple of weeks. Of course, our final episode today, we are going to talk to the newly crowned ARCA West champion in Jake Drew. But kind of surreal, Kyle, to see how quickly this season has come and gone. Anything stick out to you over the last, 8-9 months?
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. And a new co-host for me. You've done a great job, Mr. Wilner. But
thank you. I passed.
yeah, you do. I think the ARCA West series stakes out. Some great racing this year. We're going to talk to the champion Jake Drew. He won the title in the largest margin that we saw this year among the regional series of the sport. But it's been a very competitive year. Some new racetracks, some great fields, some sold out crowds. I like where ARCA West is at right now, and I can't wait to talk to Jake about his thoughts of the series and his championship season.
Absolutely. We'll pick his brain coming up in segment number 2. But of course, we wrap up 2022 with our final list of Coast to Coast winners of the week. Of course, as we finish up the season, that list kind of gets smaller and smaller, but still some marquee races like we mentioned. And I'll go ahead and just kick it off with Sammy Smith. I mean, what more can you say about the young man who's pretty much won everything and anything under the sun in 2022? The youngster won the final race of the ARCA Menard Series West race out at Phoenix this past weekend, a part of course, NASCAR Championship Weekend. 10 wins across the ARCA platform this year. Of course, already wrapped up the ARCA East Championship and the Sioux Chief Showdown, but now bookends it by winning the ARCA West Championship finale race at Phoenix. So, Kyle, I mean, what more can you say about this driver? Of course, already testing the waters up in the Xfinity Series for Joe Gibbs Racing, where, again, he had a car that probably could have won that race, too, if it wasn't for a little bit of an incident and getting caught up in some things over the course of the weekend. So, what more can you say about Sammy? It's certainly a good way to end the year.
Yeah, no doubt, one of the bright stars of the future, and he had to do it the hard way. He got penalized midway through the event after an incident with Taylor Gray, went a lap down, came back from the lap down to come up through the field to pick up the race win. You mentioned his 10th of the year, first on the West Coast, and what was like I mentioned a moment ago, a very healthy field to end the ARCA Menards West Series season, as it was heard here on the Motor Racing Network to start a busy race weekend out there in Phoenix.
It certainly was. And then, of course, that move will be talked about if Sammy didn't win. But, of course, he came back through the field and was able to go 5th to 1st on that final restart. But what'd you think of the block from Taylor Gray and then the subsequent penalty to Sammy Smith? Warranted or not?
I don't know. I hate to be put in those positions to make those calls, and I feel bad for the officials that have to make those calls. But, yeah, there was contact, and from there on out, it was fun to watch Sammy come up through the field. We'll just put it at that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the coolest drives of the year by far. All right, Kyle, who's on your list of winners this week?
Well, I'm going to stick with my modified boys. A race winner here at the Stafford Speedway back in April. Matt Hirschman continued his winning ways into the month of November, winning the 20th. I can't believe it was the 20th running. I remember announcing the first North-South shootout, 19 years ago, 20 years ago now. 125 laps this year. It was at the Caraway Speedway. The first year was at the now defunct Concord Speedway. Great field of cars. It was Matt's 8th win in the race. Dominated much of the event. Held off some familiar names in Burt Myers and Patrick Emmerling among the podium finishers on Saturday afternoon in Caraway.
And of course, we'll stick it here as my other winners of this week are both from the Cars Tour ranks. We'll start with Jared Fryer picking up the season finale win in the late model stock portion of the Cars Tour finale in the North-South Shootout at Caraway. Third career series win, but that young man hadn't tasted victory since 2020. So it's been a little bit of a journey for Jared since that last win a couple of years ago, but he does it in the final race of the 2022 season. 10th different winner on the late model stock side of things. So although Carson Kvapil, who wrapped up the championship a couple weeks ago in the penultimate race, single-handedly won the championship, when you look at on a week-to-week basis, the parity on the late model stock is pretty good.
No, absolutely is. And again, great field of cars in both the late models and the pro late models for the Cars Tour. You mentioned Carson Kvapil, champion. I wanted to mention Luke Fenhaas picking up the championship, a driver that we've learned a lot about over the last year and a half, ever since the Slinger win and his SRX ride, and now has found so much success this year on the Cars Tour, picking up that championship this past weekend, also at Caraway.
Yeah, and Austin McDonald won the Pro Late Model 100 lapper in the finale, but of course Luke Fenhaas took the title. So a couple of drivers that's not the last time we're going to hear these two, especially as they progress up in their careers next year. We're not sure if either is going to run on the late model stock side of things or continue on the Pro Late Model side. But for Austin McDonald, the 100 lapper went to him on the Pro Late Model side of things. Any other winners this week, Kyle, as we wrap up 2022?
Now, I was going to mention Austin's win as well, a close one, 0.2 of a second. It was tight at the finish the other day over Caden Kvapil. Yeah. Great finish at Caraway. It was fun to watch all of the events from the Cars Tour and the North-South Shootout from Caraway Speedway. And that pretty much wraps up. Well, no, it doesn't. There's a couple of events coming up in the Carolinas later this season that, in fact, this weekend that we'll talk about later in the show.
Yeah, for sure. We're not quite done yet. Of course, it's still relatively nice down here in the Carolinas. We kind of get lucky when it comes to Mother Nature, but that's for sure. The only other winner I had this week that stood out to me was Gio Ruggiero, of course, winning the Show Me the Money Series finale down at Montgomery Motor Speedway, Alabama State champion for 2022, and that series has seen quite the increase in popularity, especially over the last 2 years or so. They had a really healthy car count down there at Montgomery Motor Speedway, his second win of the season. Of course, Gio runs here, there, and everywhere as well in many different tours when it comes to late models. So not a stranger to victory lane, but of course wrapped up the Show Me the Money series down there at Montgomery Motor Speedway. Any shout outs for you this week, Kyle? I could probably think of a couple. Let's see who you have first.
I have Chris Wright, the series director for the ARCA Menard series. He has been a busy boy this year, both for West and East, does some work on the national side as well. I see him everywhere, and it's amazing. The day after the ARCA Menards West race, you'd think he'd fly home and rest. No, he was at the World of Outlaws event at the Charlotte Motor Speedway dirt track, soaking that in as well. But he has done a great job continuing to build those series up. We have seen car count grows. We have seen the schedule grow over the last couple of years as the brand has shifted from K&N East and West to ARCA East and West. And Chris has done a great job all along the way in continuing to build up those divisions. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Chris and congratulations on another successful year as a race director for those series.
Absolutely. A job well done for him and his staff, everyone at ARCA Menard series. And of course, the excitement is only building. Any day now, we're going to get the full 2023 schedules. I know there's pretty much already been some rumblings, especially on the national side, of how things may look a little bit similar, maybe some small tweaks here and there, but certainly excited to see what the schedule looks like for next season, as it's going to be here before you know it. I mean, heck, we were talking before the show started how quickly Daytona is going to pop up on the NASCAR side of things. Of course, that means ARCA Menard series as well. So not too much rest, but obviously a lot of upward progression for that series. My shout out of the week, I'm going to go for two. On the driving side, how about Kaylee Bryson? We talk about her on the dirt and all the impressive things she's done, of course, being one of the first women to win a national midget feature in the history of dirt midget racing. But for her to go in a pavement sprint car, wing sprint car at Citrus County, a part of their late model show to kind of wrap up the season, 11th to 5th in her debut. Literally no pavement wing sprint car experience. I know she ran some champ car stuff like out at the mile earlier this year, but for her to go out and put that on a performance like that, really impressive as she continues to be in that Toyota development system. I'm sure it won't be long before we see her in a late model as well. Like we've seen drivers like Buddy Kofoid and some others that are in that banner as well. So congratulations to her. Solid effort in her debut on the Wing Sprint car. And then I'd be remiss if we didn't mention Ty Gibbs. What a 24 hours it's been for him and his family, winning the NASCAR Xfinity Series championship a year after winning the ARCA Menard Series championship, of course, in 2021. So one of our graduates, and then literally hours later losing his father, Coy, unexpectedly at NASCAR championship weekend. So of course our thoughts and prayers are with the entire Gibbs family, Joe, and of course Ty and his whole family. But what emotional swing. But Ty, though, winning the championship, a big shout out to him. And of course his family for getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. From literally the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in that young man's life in a matter of just a couple of hours. So yeah, thoughts go out to the entire Gibbs family. Also, congratulations to Kaylee Bryson. We talked to her last year on the show, and she was running some pavement stuff at the time, had just come off a successful, I believe it was Chili Bowl, or I think it was the Chili Bowl.
Yeah, she made the A-main at the Chili Bowl.
Yeah. I know she talked during her interview that NASCAR was her goal. So looks like she is well on her way of hopefully getting to that point here in the near future.
Absolutely. Well, it's time to hit our first break of NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing. When we come back, it is time to talk the champion of the ARCA Menards West Series of 2022. That young man is Jake Drew. He's standing by. Coming up next here on NASCAR Coast to Coast presented by Flow Racing.
Flow Racing is the ultimate digital home track for race fans everywhere. Subscribe today and stream over 1,300 racing events live and on demand. Flow Racing is something for everyone. It's what we know. Sprint cars are there. NASCAR weekly racing series, drag racing, off-road, and much, much more. Learn more at flowracing.com/GoMRN. That's flowracing.com/GoMRN.
And welcome on back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Flow Racing, the home of NASCAR Roots Racing and your digital home track for all things NASCAR Roots here, there, and everywhere. You can subscribe to Flow Racing at flowracing.com. Well, we promised you the champion, and he is on the line. That is Jake Drew, your 2022 ARCA West champion of this season. Jake, congratulations. It was an incredible weekend. I know, celebrating with you, your family, your friends, and of course, the entire number 6 Sunrise 4 team and Bob and Maureen Bruncati. Let's start with the emotions going into Phoenix. Obviously, you knew you just had to start the race, so you had some time to really kind of soak in the pre-race atmosphere and as well as getting in the race car. What was going through your mind? What was that weekend like as you arrived to the racetrack at Phoenix?
I was super excited to know the situation. Obviously, that like you said, all we had to do was start the race. But really, I was just with that situation. I was really looking forward to just taking it all in as a learning experience. Really, every time we go to Phoenix in the West Series, it's an important race, either the first or last of the season. You don't want to make any big mistakes. So it was super cool for me to just be able to come in there and take advantage of the opportunity and learn as much as I could on these big tracks. And I really enjoyed that for sure.
What was the big takeaway from Phoenix, other than the championship title? What'd you learn? Obviously, I think it was one of your only finishes outside of the top 10 all year.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I learned how easy it is to move up and down the leaderboard for sure. I mean, I think we ran as far back as 15th and as high up as 3rd at one point. So just how quick everything can turn around.
How did you approach, though, once the race got going, to not being maybe too aggressive and understanding that, obviously you are the champion, so it's pretty much you can go for broke. But how difficult was it managing that race, of course, as you get more and more experience on these bigger tracks?
Aggression wise, I mean, I feel like I'm aggressive and when it's the right time to be, but never too much. So I wasn't really too worried about that. And I've never, I don't think I've done anybody dirty too much this year. So that wasn't much of a worry of mine.
How determined were you this season after the way last season ended in a tie?
Huge amounts of drive and just passion to want to take this championship home. And, with the situation with Bob and the team ending, it was really important for me to try and bring that home for Bob and his family and, everything he's done for drivers like me. And, just like I said, just huge drive and determination. we had tons of momentum going at the end of last year. I knew it was time to just carry that on into this year and, let last year be what it was and just focus on this year solely.
And you were able to lock up the championship with the dominating season. When you talk about not just 4 wins, but the 4 poles that go along with it, 9 top 5 finishes. What was the biggest difference this year in year number 2 with this race team than it was when you first got on the scene last year in terms of your growth as a driver and how you're able to really hit the ground running, and kind of be the championship favorite and obviously the contender for the title pretty much the entire season?
Right. And I think confidence is a huge thing in that, right? So I came into the year last year as a rookie and just kind of getting my feet wet and everything. And I feel like I took the first half of the year kind of just taking everything in and learning as I was going. And then, I mentioned the momentum was building at the end of the last year. So just to take that on with me this year and just kind of to have that confidence and the drive and the determination and just, piece by piece everything together during the off season and everything. And, got in the right mindset with everybody, and we just came out attacking.
You had some top 2 and 3 finishes early, but boy, when we raced in the rain at Portland, the streak began there. What clicked there in the month of June when we hit Portland and then Sonoma and then Irwindale?
I think just picking up that first win just kind of gave me that extra little confidence boost that I needed just to, start contending for or really finishing off those wins, right? We were already getting seconds and thirds and whatnot, but we're still hunting down that win. So I think we finally just, opened up that last little bit and opened the floodgates, you could say, a little bit, and just started to click them off there for a little while.
Literally in Portland. I thought it was flooding there for a little bit.
Yeah, that was wild to watch for sure. I'm kind of glad I was not behind the wheel because that was absolutely intense racing. But
I think
this magical,
you guys saw more than I did.
probably, honestly, yeah, you were probably too busy trying to read between the raindrops. That was pretty incredible. But all in all, though, this has been an incredible season. But how much more special is it for you, not only just being a champion on the ARCA Menard Series level, but to do it for Bob and Maureen, who announced that they're going to, finish up their ARCAs, 22 years in the series this year, and to bookend it with a championship? How much more special is that for you, and what influence have they had on you in your career?
The influence they've had on me is incredible. I can't thank them enough for this opportunity they've given me to, fulfill some of my dreams from being a young kid, wanting to be a race car driver, right? So I got to live that dream for a little while, and I hope I get to continue that. And just my thanks and my gratitude to them is, undescribable. It's truly, it's quite an honor though to pick up a championship for them in their final season. And I've worked in the shop the last 2 years, learning about the cars and being hands-on, and so I get to see every day the banners up in the shop of all the drivers that have come through and won races and championships, and it's cool to be part of that list, and it's also cool to be the period on it and be the end of it. And I'm really happy that I was able to fulfill that for Bob and his family.
And you made a good point just now, is the fact that you were in the shop working. So how much did that help you as a race car driver? Because, you hear about some other drivers, they show up with the helmet bag, the gear bag, and they hop in the car and go. But for you to kind of learn about the shop, the inner workings of the team, how much more beneficial was that to you?
Well, it's definitely given me appreciation of how much time and effort really goes into anything, and kind of, take care of your equipment a little bit, right? Take care of what's going on. So that's a big part of it. And then, of course, just being there with your crew chief and whatnot, you can take that extra time and the extra 30, 45 minutes and just sit there and talk and ask questions and be able to get a clear answer on everything that's going on, and, build your notebook that much easier, and with less pressure with everything going on at the track and stuff. So I really enjoyed that for sure.
The Brancattis have been part of this West Series, as you mentioned, for 22 years. They've seen the highs and lows. I feel like, though, this series right now in a pretty good place. The car counts are good. Saw a couple of sellout crowds at some of the bull rings a couple of months ago. The crowds are good. The interest is there. As the champion, how would you view the ARCA West Series right now from your point?
I feel the West Series is a great series right now. I mean, I think every race we had 5, 6, 7 cars that, we knew were all contenders to go for the win that night. And there'd be times throughout the race where we'd all be stacked bumper to bumper going for it and changing spots. And so I think the competition's been great. The respect levels have been high. I've really enjoyed racing with everybody, and almost building friendships there. I've been able to walk around and talk to pretty much everybody there every race. So I think the West Series is on a great uptrend right now.
Okay, so 2022 is over. What's the celebration like? How do you kind of enjoy it? And I guess when does the process begin to figure out what next year looks like? Do you kind of have an idea, or kind of what does that look like right now?
The begin for searching for 2023 started right after the race. I mean, the truck race was right after, so I stayed around the weekend and walked around and made my rounds and said hi to some people and just trying to see what's available and what I can get myself into. I'm going to make the move to North Carolina in December during the off season, so I'm excited to do that and try and get myself in the mix for sure. But as of right now, not really sure where I'm going to land. But I'm hoping to start piecing that together here soon because I need to drive. I want to drive.
Right. You kind of answered my final question, so I'll rephrase it. How does that move to North Carolina happen? I mean, was that planned before the championship, or have you known about this move now for quite some time?
Yeah, I've been planning on it for a couple months now. I went back there in October of 2021, and I just really enjoyed it there. I loved being there and have been wanting to go back there, and obviously to chase a dream and a career. I think everybody knows that North Carolina is the place to be. So from then on, I was immediately starting to look at opportunities and situations to get myself back there. And luckily with some great friends of mine and supporters of mine, I've been able to piece all that together, and I'm excited to make that jump.
Well, it is the place to be, not only for the racing aspect, but I mean, I'm here, so you can come hang out anytime right next to me here in the studio, Jake, for sure.
Perfect.
Kyle left. He left me. He's up in Connecticut. He should have stayed down here, Kyle. So I don't know. Maybe you want to come back eventually. We'll see.
Perfect.
Well, congratulations. Yeah, Kyle, we'll see. Sure. Well, Jake, congratulations again on your championship, all the success that you and your team have had this year. Best of luck on the search for next year, and can't wait to catch up with you when you're down here in North Carolina in the coming months.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me all.
There he is, ARCA West champion to 2022, Jake Drew. We'll wait and see what happens here in 2023. Coming up next, our final Go With The Flow calendar. A few more races still to go, some big ones too here in 2022. We'll get to that coming up next on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Flow Racing.
Flow Racing is the ultimate digital home track for race fans everywhere. Subscribe today and stream over 1,300 racing events live and on demand. Flow Racing is something for everyone. It's what we know. Sprint cars are there. NASCAR weekly racing series, drag racing, off-road, and much, much more. Learn more at flowracing.com/GoMRN. That's flowracing.com/GoMRN.
Welcome back to NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR roots. You can subscribe today at flowracing.com. Kyle just talked to our champion, our now reigning champion of the ARCA West Series. That is Jake Drew. What'd you think? Obviously, wraps up a championship, but you know in the back of his mind, and he even said it there too, the planning has begun for next year. What is the most logical thing that would be next for a guy like Jake Drew?
Yeah, or I mean, a ride in the ARCA Menard series. No doubt there's some opportunity there. Perhaps he mentioned it in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, as it'll be known next season in 2023. And he hinted that he was, beating the pavement there in the garage on Friday and Saturday in Phoenix. So we'll see. I mean, there's options out there, and I think it's going to be a heck of a lot easier for him to find those options when he moves the 3,000 miles east back to the East Coast. So I think no matter what happens, though, we will see him on the racetrack in one of those levels next year. He's too talented to not put in a ride.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. So time will tell. Of course, I'm sure like most drivers, they'll make the announcements over social media and things like that, of course, in the off season. Before we get to our go with the flow calendar, of course, final episode of Coast to Coast here for 2022, but we're not done racing just yet. Coming up in just about 25 days or so is the 55th annual Snowball Derby weekend out at Pensacola's Five Flags Speedway, and we saw the initial entry list that has come out this past week, and Kyle, 47, already entered for the Derby portion. Chandler Smith, of course, a Derby winner. You have Hocevar, Bubba Pollard, you name it, they're already all entered. But what intrigued me as well is the Snowflake, the pro late model portion that happens before the Derby. How about Hunter Robbins, Augie Grill, Brittany Zamora, who just re-signed with Rackley War to run this event? Some really big names also taking part, and some of those crossovers running the Snowflake and the Derby. You like that when you get a little bit of a mix at the Snowflake level?
Oh, I love it. I love that whole weekend. I'm sure you mentioned 47 super late models for the Snowball. I'm sure it will be 50 or 60 pro late models for the Saturday night Snowflake 100. Healthy entry lists. The eyes of the short track world will be on that event because frankly, there's not going to be a whole lot else happening the first week of December 1st through the 4th. So all eyes will be on Five Flags. That's it always is. So can't wait. The competitors know that. That's why they're there. Some of the best short track racing we see all year will happen in just a couple of weeks' time. Would you say 25 days? That's hard to believe. Christmas is closing in quick here.
I know. That's why I said at the top of the show, where'd the time go? We're already getting close to Snowball Derby weekend. And, of course, Stephen Nasse has entered, who pretty much called his shot after he won the Winchester 400, that he's coming for the Derby. Again, backed it up with the win out at Nashville as well. So he's got two marquee wins going into Derby time. Have to say he may be the favorite, but we'll see. All right.
And I don't think anyone's won those big three in a single season. So
no, I don't think so either. That's why I'm very intrigued to see what that whole motorsports group and Stephen Nasse does coming up in 25 days. The rest of the calendar this week, though, pretty small. Hickory Motor Speedway does have their rescheduled fall brawl. It was rescheduled from October the 15th due to the tire shortage issue, which again, a lot of racetracks across the country have dealt with this year. Hickory, the last to really see the effects, obviously impacting their final race of the year, but that is now coming up this Saturday. Of course, you can watch that on Flow Racing, and 2022 track champion Landon Huffman is among those entered. A good, healthy entry list as well, Kyle. Some big names racing down here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, 100 laps for the limited late models, 100 laps for the Carolina Pro late models, 30 laps for the street stocks. You mentioned healthy entry lists. Hope the tire supply seems to be there. This race was supposed to happen 3 weeks ago. It'll happen and button up the Hickory Motor Speedway season this Saturday. Also, just north of North Carolina, about 300 miles or so, at Riverhead Raceway on Long Island, the Islip 300 for the modifieds. Happening this weekend as well. A healthy entry list there. Doug Coby, Jimmy Blewett, Kyle Bonsignor, Kyle Soper, who has found so much success at Riverhead, Keith Rocco, who has found so much success here at Stafford on the entry list, Craig Lutz. Going to be a great race this coming Saturday as well for open wheel fans up here in the Northeast, the Islip 300. Weather hopefully will cooperate. There's that storm that's been brewing out and down in Florida that looks like it's coming up the coast. So fingers crossed that the Islip 300 is not affected.
For sure. One of the cool races of the year, definitely at Riverhead. Also on tap, Super Late Model 50 out at Citrus, and Gulf Coast Racing Series wraps up their year at Mobile International Speedway. Other than that, tons of racing on the dirt side. You can check it all out on flowracing.com. Get yourself a subscription, because when they're done with that, there's plenty of big races coming up over the course of the winter. But as far as the NASCAR route style racing, kind of three more big marquee events. We talked about one of them coming up December 1st through the 4th, being the 55th annual Snowball Derby. But how about the South Carolina 400 sneaking up on us November 19th out at Florence? Dale Earnhardt Jr., we talked about it, announced he's going to run that race. They just unveiled this past week his race car, a little throwback, Bass Pro Shops number 3 in honor of his dad. How cool is that? And obviously that just made the entry list go sky high as soon as he announced he was running that race.
Yeah, I love what Dale Earnhardt Jr. is doing right now in the late model world down in the Carolinas. We saw what he did at North Wilkesboro Speedway a couple of months ago and what he'll continue to do. Now he's virtually taking what was the Myrtle Beach 400 until Myrtle Beach Speedway closed a couple of years ago, and building this event up to be such a, like you mentioned, another major event. The entry list continues to grow. All eyes will be on Dale Jr. Here coming up for that marquee event.
So again, that race is on November 19th, and then the following week or so, the Thanksgiving Classic at Southern National, by my understanding, is still a go. So that's a huge kind of holiday time short track race there at Southern National, one of the marquee short tracks in North America. Very popular. Those entry lists, I think, are just getting ready to be announced, kind of their early entry lists, so we'll get a good look at that in the coming weeks. But for sure, another marquee event. I know Matt Weaver and a bunch of local media down here in the Carolinas are planning on covering that event, as well as the South Carolina 400. And, of course, it all culminates with the 55th Annual Snowball Derby and, of course, the Snowflake 100 down there at Five Flags. Now, I mentioned Flow Racing is the place to be. Kyle, don't forget, you know what's right around the corner? Tulsa Shootout and the Chili Bowl. How about that? I mean, just when I felt like we were done talking about it like a month or two ago from last year, it's time to start talking about who's going to be the favorites there. Of course, I'll be down there as well for Flow Racing, but a good thing to have is Flow Racing, especially as we get to the winter months. Lots going on here that you can catch out from the comforts of your own home.
Yeah, I was concerned I may not see you again until, February, March of next year. And then I remembered, I'll have like 14 nights of Chris Wilner when it comes to the Chili Bowl and the preceding Tulsa Shootout right after. I think that starts right at Christmas, like right the day after Christmas.
First day of the shootout this year is the 26th of December.
There you go.
So yeah, believe it or not, heading there immediately after Christmas because they added a day. Last year we had over 1,400 entries that you saw live on Flow, and it was nonstop from about 8 a.m. To about 10 or 11 p.m. Now, granted, this year with the added day, they start everything at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is an extra hour of sleep, which I will certainly appreciate. But for sure, you can have coffee with Chris, you can have lunch with Chris, and dinner with Chris. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. But of course, then the Chili Bowl Nationals to follow that as well. But hey, you know what? It's one of the coolest times of year, indoor season. Certainly can't wait to get there. But of course, we wrap up all of our short track action on the route side coming up in the next couple weeks. Again, don't forget South Carolina 400, November 19th. Then the 27th of November, the Thanksgiving Classic, Snowball Derby, right around the corner, 25 days away. Kyle, for the last time until 2023, this was NASCAR Coast to Coast. Can you believe it?
It's been fun. It's been year 10 for NASCAR Coast to Coast. Yeah. And we've been doing a lot of short track racing talk here on the Motor Racing Network over the last decade or so, and look forward to continuing that same talk in the future.
But of course, this show also produced by Flow Racing, the new home of NASCAR Roots. Again, subscribe if you haven't done so already. It's the best bang for your buck. Go to flowracing.com for more information. Certainly, that's where I will be the rest of this winter season, checking out all that they have to offer. Not only races, but good feature pieces, good short films, and everything short track racing, both on the dirt and the pavement. Well, for Kyle, Rickey, my name is Chris Wilner. For our producer, Craig Moore, we appreciate you tuning in each and every episode all season long here on NASCAR Coast to Coast, presented by Flow Racing. We'll be back to talk about the countdown to Daytona and all things the back half of the winter season starting in 2023. Enjoy the rest of your racing calendar, and we'll see you next year.